Hello everybody and welcome to the Import-Export Hub channel. Bogdan here, your host for the next couple of minutes. And guys, without further ado, as I'm sure that you all know what to do with the like and the subscribe buttons, let's scratch a little bit the imports and the exports of Spain for 2020. As usual, I have prepared an Excel file with all the relevant data. So let's dive into the figures here and see together where does Spain performs in terms of imports and exports, and of course to see together who are the main trading partners. As usual, I will start with the exports, in which Spain performs relatively well worldwide. Overall, it's in top 20 in terms of the biggest exporters, somewhere between Switzerland and Belgium with its $312 billion worth of exports, almost 7.5% down compared with the figures from 2019. But this is understandable as most of the export volumes shrunk because of the pandemic. Now, relative to the top 10 exports, as we can see here, Chapter 87, which is basically the automotive industry, is the main driver, with close to 16% in Spain's total exports, which is followed by Chapter 84, and we have on the third place Chapter 99, which are commodities not elsewhere specified, who were up almost 3% compared with the figures from 2019. Now, in terms of cumulative value, these top 10 export chapters make up for roughly 56% in Spain's total exports, which is not that concentrated if you ask me, meaning that there is a lot of diversified manufacturing going on in Spain. In terms of variability, as I said previously, the total exports were down almost 7.5% overall, with big contractions taking place in Chapter 87. We see here Chapter 84 and Chapter 27, which is the chapter related to mineral fuels and mineral oils, who was down almost 40%. But on the other hand, there were positive changes in relation with Chapter 30, so pharmaceutical products, Chapter 8, Chapter 7, and we see here also Chapter 2, who all seem to be on an upward trend, and my guess is that this trend will continue, especially for Chapters 2, 7, and 8. Now, moving on to the import side, we see that these were also down compared with the figures from 2019, with Chapter 87 dominating Spain's imports, followed relatively close by Chapter 84, and on the third place we have Chapter 27, so mineral fuels and mineral oils. In terms of absolute value, the total imports amounted to almost $330 billion, a figure closer to that of 2017, resulting in a negative balance of trade close to $18 billion for 2020. Relative to the variability here, there were major contractions, especially in the mineral fuels and oil sector, as the demand dropped in the context of the uncertainties of the pandemic, of course, but also the capital equipment, durable and discretionary goods sectors were also heavily affected. So I'm talking here about Chapters 84 and Chapters 85. As in the case of major uncertainties and disruptions, because these are the most affected. And by all means, this is not valid only to Spain, of course, but to all economies, as discretionary and durable goods are the most affected by these types of shocks or disruptions. But anyways, coming back to the imports of Spain here, I want to talk just a little bit about the balance of trade, which is negative, as I've said earlier, the biggest drivers being Chapter 27 and Chapter 85. But on the other hand, there were two chapters in this top 10 list who have a positive balance of trade, and these are Chapter 87 and Chapter 99, for which it seems that Spain's exports more than it imports. And with these flows being covered, let's take a look now at the top five performing sectors for both the import and export flows. And let's see who are the main trading partners for Spain. And I will begin with the best performer chapter for the export flow, which is chapter 87, so vehicles other than railway parts and accessories thereof, who for 2020, as expected, did not perform very well. And we see here that the exports were down almost 11% compared with the figures from 2019. The worst performance in the last 5 years, below the psychological threshold of $50 billion, if you want. But anyways, the automotive sector is very, very important for Spain's economy. Lots of manufacturing plants in Spain, from, I don't know, Volkswagen and Nissan to Daimler and PSA, or I don't know, Stellantis, whatever it is called now. In terms of trading partners, France is the biggest one with almost $10.7 billion worth of exports, followed by Germany, and we have on the third place the United Kingdom with close to $4.6 billion worth of exports. But there are other important partners in this top 10 list, like, I don't know, Belgium, Turkey, the United States, or the Netherlands, just to name a few. Relative to the year-on-year changes, except with France and Turkey, to whom the exports were up, with the rest of the trading partners, there were major contractions, I don't know, ranging from -8% to -28%, as we can see here with Belgium. As for the main export drivers, no brainer here. If you ask me, we have HS code 870322. So cars, automobiles with small cubic capacity for both France and Turkey. But rest assured that the automotive parts and component sectors are also very important for this chapter. Now moving on to the next chapter, which is chapter 84. Here the exported values are lower, around $21.7 billion, with France, the United States and Germany being the top three export destinations. But we have also, I don't know, Morocco, Italy, Mexico or China, again limiting myself to these top 10 ones. In terms of year-on-year changes, as this chapter is related to capital equipment, so basically we are talking here about industrial customers, a sector that was hit by the uncertainties of the pandemic. We see a 10% shrinkage in exports, with negative values ranging from -1% to -36%, as in the case here with Mexico, for example. And in fact, the only positive change in this top 10 list is in relation with the Netherlands, to whom the exports jumped 41%. As for the main drivers, for the United States, we have parts of non-electrical engines and motors. And for Mexico, we have HS code 840734. So spark ignition piston engines, who most probably, if you ask me, are delivered to Mexico's car assembly plants. But anyways, this is a guess of mine. I'm not sure if this is the case. And I will move now to the next chapter, which is chapter 99. And well, here there is not that much to say other than the fact that the exports were up almost 3% compared with figures of 2019, with big year-on-year changes in relation with the Netherlands, Italy, and France. And this chapter is quite particular because on one hand, companies, for reasons of, I don't know, confidentiality, can put their exports under this chapter. And on the other hand, you have, I don't know, destinations like other European territories not elsewhere specified, or ships, stores, bunkers, which are quite niche activities and relate to exports towards the aircrafts and the vessels, as the fuel or the food delivered to the vessels and aircrafts are taken into account under this chapter. And as you might know, Barcelona is a major hub for both the aviation and cruising industries. You have also Madrid, which is a very important air hub. You have then the ports of Barcelona and Algeciras, in terms of containerized trade. So it's understandable why ship stores and bunkers is the second biggest destination in terms of exports here. But anyways, as I've said, this is a particular chapter. The data here is not that representative relative to the actual exported products, so to speak. So I will move on to the fourth biggest chapter driving Spain exports, which is chapter 85, so electrical machinery. And we see that these two contracted in 2020 more than 5%, bringing the exported value to $17 billion, with France, Germany, and Portugal the biggest destinations. Now, in terms of year-on-year changes, there were big contractions in relation with France, the United Kingdom, Morocco, Poland, and Turkey. But there were also positive changes in relation with Germany, Portugal, the United States, Italy, and the Netherlands, again limiting myself to these top 10 trading partners. As for the main export drivers from this chapter, we have mobile phones, as in the case with Portugal, and electric conductors, so HS code 854449, as in the case with Morocco. And with this being covered, guys, I'll move on to the last chapter from the export flow, which is chapter 30, so pharmaceutical products. And as expected, if you ask me, the sector performed really well in 2020, bringing the total exports close to $13.8 billion, which is almost 8% more than the figures from 2019. And here, I don't know if the pandemic caused this growth or it's just continuing the organic linear growth trend. But nonetheless, it seems that the industry, it's quite important for Spain. And here we can see who are the main trading partners in terms of exports. And we have on the first place Switzerland, followed by Germany. And on the third place, we have France, with almost $982 million worth of exports. Now, relative to the year-on-year changes, except with the Netherlands, to which the exports fell almost 10%, with the rest of the trading partners, we see nice positive changes ranging from, I don't know, almost 3% to almost 44%, as in the case here with China. Relative to the main export drivers, we have HS code 300490, as in the case with Italy, and HS code 300420, as in the case here with China. Now, moving on to the import flow, the biggest one is chapter 87, and we see that overall the total imported value was down 23% in relative terms, bringing the absolute value to almost $34.4 billion, much lower than what happened in the previous 4 years with Germany, France, and Italy representing the top 3 trading partners. But of course, there are other important ones in this top 10 list, like, I don't know, the Czech Republic, Japan, or Turkey, again, just to name a few. As for the main import drivers, for the Czech Republic, we have HS code 870323, and for Poland, we have HS code 870899, so parts and accessories for tractors, cars, and buses. Now, jumping on to the next chapter, which is chapter 84, we see again a big contraction here in terms of imports, more than 11% relative to the figures of 2019, bringing the absolute value to more or less $31.3 billion. Now, in terms of the biggest trading partners, Germany is the biggest one with almost $6.5 billion, followed by China with more or less $5 billion. And on the third place, we have Italy with almost $3.4 billion worth of imports. In terms of year-on-year changes, except with China, Portugal, and Poland, from which Spain imported more, with the rest of the top 10 trading partners, the volumes were down, with Germany having the biggest change in absolute values. As for the main import drivers here for both Italy and the Netherlands, we have HS code 847130, so data processing machines. And guys, with this being said, I'll move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 27. So the much needed mineral and oil fuels for the industry and transport sectors. And here we have quite a big contraction, almost 38% compared with 2019, bringing the absolute value to almost $31 billion, which is very close to that from 2016. In terms of the biggest trading partners, Nigeria is the biggest one, followed by the United States, and on the third place with more than $2.6 billion, we have Algeria. Now, relative to the year-on-year changes, we see lots of red in this top 10 list, except Brazil, from which Spain imported 7% more in 2020 relative to 2019. As for the main import drivers, from Algeria we have natural gas, and from the Russian Federation we have HS code 271019, so medium oils and preparations, as Spain, from my knowledge, is not self-sufficient in terms of mineral fuels and oils. But anyways, moving on to the fourth biggest chapter driving Spain's imports, which is chapter 87. Here the imports stayed relatively close to those of 2019 and 2018. Not too much volatility here, at least in the last 3 years, as you can see together. In absolute terms, we're talking about $29 billion worth of imports for 2020, with China, Germany, and Morocco the biggest trading partners. But there are others in this top 10 list, like, I don't know, France, Vietnam, or the United States, again, just to name a few from this top 10 list. Now, going deeply in the year-on-year changes, the positive changes are in relation with China, the Netherlands, Poland, and the United States, while the negative changes are in relation with Germany, Morocco, France, Italy, Vietnam, and the United Kingdom. But overall, if you ask me, the sector performed well given the circumstances. As for the main drivers, mobile phones are driving the imports coming from China, while automatic circuit breakers for a voltage less than or equal to 1000 volts are driving most of the imports coming from France. And guys, with this being said, I am approaching the end here. Bear with me just a little bit more. Here we have the last chapter for the import flow, which is chapter 30. And as in the case with the export flow, these two performed pretty well, and we see almost an 8% increase in imports relative to 2019, bringing the total value close to $17 billion, with the United States, Germany, and Switzerland being the top 3 trading partners. Relative to the year-on-year changes, except with the United Kingdom, from which Spain imported almost 15% less in 2020, with the rest of the trading partners, there were big positive changes ranging from 6% to almost 81%, as in the case with Denmark here. But still, the absolute values with Denmark are much, much lower if we compare with the top 3 ones. As for the main drivers, both for the United States and Switzerland, HS code 300490 represent the main imported product. And guys, with this being said, these were the top 5 sectors driving Spain imports and exports. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe buttons. And of course, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.